Well, good evening. Hello. Aloha, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to learn about Terraformation. So I'm going to try to keep this under 10 minutes. I got a lot of information that I want to impart to you, so I'm just going to speed through this. If you have any questions, of course, I'll be available afterwards. So Terraformation is working to conclusively solve climate change. And if you want to work on climate change, then there's two basic strategies that we have to employ, as we, meaning all of humanity. One is reduce emissions, and the second is sequester greenhouse gases. So Terraformation focuses on the second part of that, the sequestration side, and our mission specifically is to create in the next decade, billions of acres of net new forest to create the world's largest natural carbon sink, and through that to be able to absorb all of the emissions that humanity needs to have absorbed for 50 to 100 years, which will then give us the time, the runway, to reduce emissions and get us to a renewably powered society and economy. So that's a really big deal. That's a really big mission. Let me tell you more about the team and what we're doing. So my name is Yi. I come from Silicon Valley. I'm leading one of the teams at Terraformation, and I'm part of an 80-person team now. Ishan, who you see, I guess, in your top left there, he and I have known each other for many, many years. We've been friends for 20-odd years. We were in many Silicon Valley companies together, like PayPal, Facebook. I served at Google, Skype, and so we're Valley people, right? And so we definitely know the power of what technology can do for scaling things. But if we wanted to scale a forestry-based natural carbon sink, we felt like we needed a much more multidisciplinary and cross-disciplinary team. So we brought together a team of foresters, botanists, soil scientists, carbon scientists, data scientists, and really are trying to create a best-of-breed team that's bringing together all the skills necessary to massively scale forestry around the world. And if you want to work on forestry, and if you want to work on massive scale carbon sequestration, then there's one thing that you got to keep in mind, which is all life forms are actually, or all the predominant life forms on planet Earth are carbon-based. So if you want to sequester the maximum amount of carbon per hectare, then really the challenge is about squeezing as much life as you can possibly fit into that hectare. Another word for squeezing a lot of life into a hectare is biodiversity. Right? Think about all the layers of a natural forest ecosystem: the canopy, the understory, the ground litter, the above ground and in ground carbon capture opportunities around mycelial networks and microbial life, mycorrhizae. There's just swarms of flora and fauna that grow around, in, and under trees. So the intervention of planting trees is an important one. It's how we get an ecosystem started. But really the work of carbon capture is done by the whole ecosystem. And so that's really what Terraformation's mission boils down to, is trying to create billions of acres of net new biodiverse forestry ecosystems. Of course, building ecosystems is not only good for sustainability and good for the environment, it actually turns out to be a really good business as well. So there's been these two great white papers that were released recently, one by Frontier Economics, another by Vivid Economics, that describe this multi-trillion-dollar investment opportunity around nature-based solutions based off of afforestation. And you don't even need to know anything about the basics of forestry business models. Just think about this thought experiment, right? If somebody were to say, hey, I'm going to give you a hectare of land, it can be a degraded, sort of rocky rubble piece of land, or it can be a forested piece of land. Like, which would you take? Of course, you would take the forested one. We all know intuitively that forested lands are more valuable. They carry the potential for life. They carry the potential for revenue generation in all these different ways. There's been billions of acres that have already been committed to forestry from various governments and large landowners. And there's billions more acres of degraded and desertified land which could be regenerated into biodiverse forest ecosystems. And there's lots of capital, right? There's billions of dollars that have been committed to forestry from governments and from ultra-high net worth individuals. And all of that, of course, is underscored by dramatic increases or dramatic projected increases in the price per ton of carbon credits and the overall carbon credit demand schedule over the next 50 years. So, okay. If you've got land, if you've got capital, if you've got a business model, if you've got all these amazing carbon credits that are in such high demand, we should all expect to see forests just sort of popping up everywhere now, right? But we don't. So why is that? So this is really where Terraformation's approach we think will add value. Our fundamental hypothesis is that the space of global forestry is held back today by three major bottlenecks. First bottleneck is seeds, second bottleneck is biodiversity tracking, and the third bottleneck is early stage capital. And again, you can kind of come at this from a first principles perspective. Just think, right, about what it takes to actually plant 1 trillion trees or to actually get, billions of acres covered in trees. If you want to plant 1 trillion native biodiverse trees, you're going to need multiple trillions of seeds. Do we have that today? No. Our seed stocks around the world are not actually that replenished. We don't have enough seeds, and so there's a multi-100,000 seed bank distributed system that'll have to be put in place in the next decade to support that. Second bottleneck, biodiversity tracking. If you want to simultaneously underwrite millions of forestry projects, then how do you do that, right? You need some measurement system, some standards around what are the biodiversity outcomes that these forests are producing in order to underwrite them successfully. Today, though, we don't have the technical means to do this. We don't actually have the underwriting system, the standards around biodiversity. We don't have the technology that automatically counts species above and below ground and keeps track of increases of flora and fauna density. So biodiversity tracking is a key bottleneck. And then third, early stage capital. I just talked a moment ago about billions of dollars being available for capital, but if you think very pragmatically about just being an early stage forest operator, right? You're starting a pilot project, you're hoping to expand it, but you don't have any carbon stocks that are verified and ready for sale now, and your pilot project, it might work and it might not. So you don't usually qualify actually for bond financing. So here's what Terraformation is doing about those three bottlenecks. First, on seed storage, we've produced modularized or containerized seed banks. These are units which will operate anywhere in the world, completely off-grid. They have solar panels on their roofs. You can build them and operate them, deploy them anywhere in the world. And if you want to just download the plans for yourself and build them yourself, you can do that too. So as I said, the world needs hundreds of thousands of these seed banks to be deployed in order to meet the demand of trillions of seeds that need to be collected. Seed training is another service that we offer. We also realize that just as we're short of seeds, we're also short of people who are trained as seed collectors, seed bank operators, and nursery operators. And so there's classes that Terraformation offers to be able to make people proficient in that from a standing start. In terms of biodiversity tracking, today, Terraformation has mobile applications which track biodiversity of seeds and track biodiversity of plants in nurseries. Next step for us, we're doing research and development now on next generation hardware and software that will automatically keep track of all of the flora and fauna, above ground, below ground, organic activity so that we can start to systematize the underwriting of forestry projects. And in terms of early stage risk capital, Terraformation has raised $35 million to date through 2 rounds of private equity financing, and we're putting our money where our mouth is. We're using our own balance sheet as early stage capital to directly fund forest projects around the world. That, of course, does not scale forever, right? We can't raise all the private equity in the world. So we're very actively looking for partners and for novel funding structures like blended capital structures that will be able to tolerate early stage risk and help forestry projects get off the ground. One particular thing that everybody in this room could participate in or help us spread the word about is a $5 million crowd raise that we're running right now. We wanted to open this up on Republic and to allow anybody in the world to come and participate in the mission of Terraformation and to do so at the exact same terms that our recent institutional Series A investors got. So that's on republic.co. So by offering these 3 services and tools to the world, we've been able to start over 30 project collaborations around the world, and we're constantly looking for more properties to operate on, so I'm very happy to talk with anybody who's got leads on additional lands to operate. And I'm going to pause there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lee.
You bet.